Welcome His Excellency Mr. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, joining us online. Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President. Welcome.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Mr. President, welcome, and I invite you to address the Parliament.
Дякую.
Thank you, dear friends,
пані прем'єр-міністре,
Madam Prime Minister,
пане спікере,
Mr.
пане лідер
Speaker,
опозиції, пані та
Mr.
панове
Leader of the
урядовці
Opposition,
та
ladies and gentlemen, the
парламентарі,
government,
народи Нової
parliamentarians,
Зеландії.
the people of New Zealand. I'm grateful for this opportunity to address you, and I would like to offer you to take a lead in the field of protecting the peace. This year has shown the whole world how much can be done with enough determination and knowledge of what needs to be done. Let's be honest, at the beginning of this year, no one in the world expected sensations from Ukraine when Russia's launched and launched their full-scale invasion. I heard only sympathy in the voices of many, but showing the determination response tend to change everything instantly. Everyone for whom the Ukrainians' struggle for freedom resonated in their hearts, later joined the global coalition in protection of freedom. Today, this anti-war coalition has more than 100 countries, those who support the fundamental principles of international law and the UN Charter, those in the international institutions like the UN General Assembly, who vote for decisions in favor of peace and territorial integrity of Ukraine, those who provide our country with armed support and train our military, those who imposed sanctions against terrorist state and constantly raise the price that Russia needs to pay for the aggression and global crises it provoked, and those who help us to restore and resolve those crises, those who do everything possible to make Russia's war criminals hold accountable for what they've done against Ukraine. Over the course of 293 days of this terrible war, the very course of events has created opportunities for different countries and leaders to prove themselves, to find their role in protection of what we cherish above all. I'm grateful to you, dear friends, for the fact that New Zealand was one of the first countries to support Ukraine in its struggle for independence and justice. Facing the unique moral challenge of this war, you've changed your own approaches to the sanctions policy and imposed national sanctions against those involved in fomenting the aggression. You've helped us with funding to cover the security needs with the supply of ammunition and training of the military. You've provided us with humanitarian assistance and support us on international platforms. We very much appreciate all this in Ukraine. I thank you once again for this support. But let me offer you one more thing. Various dictators and aggressors, they always fail to realize that the strength of the free world is not about someone becoming large or big and becoming full of missiles, but in the fact that everyone knows how to unite and act decisively and make its unique contribution to the common cause. Perhaps the time has come for your country to make such a unique contribution. I'm talking about one of the points of our formula for peace, which I proposed recently at the G19 summit in Indonesia. Maybe you've heard about the 10 points that can return peace to Ukraine and the whole of Europe and space, just as to restore the security and stability in the world that were shattered by Russian strikes. These are very transparent and logical points. These are radiation, nuclear security, food security, energy security, the release of all the prisoners of war, and the return of the deportees, the full implementation of the UN Charter, and restoration of the territorial integrity of Ukraine, the withdrawal of Russian troops from our territory that would result in a cessation of hostilities, the return of justice by bringing war criminals to justice, countering the ecocide, preventing the escalation of the war, and solidifying of its end. Each of these points can remove one or another element of Russia's aggression. Consequently, all of them would be able to bring peace. I propose to convene a special summit in the coming month. This would be Global Peace Formula Summit, where partner states could decide which of the points of this peace formula they could help us to implement. Just like we are implementing this point of the formula, that is the food security. There is a format of cooperation with the UN, Turkey, and other partners that resulted in 2 initiatives that allowed to remove deficit on the world food market that was caused by the criminal Russians' blockade of our seaports. We've unblocked 3 Ukrainian seaports, and there's already some clear and evident results of that. Our grain initiative and the humanitarian initiative, which is called Grain from Ukraine, they're now working together to solve the challenge of the global hunger. By the way, you may learn more about these initiatives, and maybe you could see a role for yourself in settling the food crisis. But at the same time, I would like to ask you to focus on the 8th point of our formula for peace, which is a point about the environmental security. The wise people understand the impact of a war on the environment, and your society is truly a wise one. The economy and infrastructure can be reconstructed. Well, of course, it may take years, but you can't rebuild the destroyed nature, just as you can't restore the destroyed life. As of now, 174,000 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory are contaminated with mines and unexploded ordnance. The sea area of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov are also contaminated with mines and has lost hundreds of thousands of living creatures, those who died as the result of hostilities and operations of Russia naval fleet. Dozens of rivers are polluted, hundreds of coal mines are flooded, dozens of the most dangerous enterprises, including chemical ones, have been destroyed by Russian strikes. 3 million hectares of forests in Ukraine are affected by hostilities. Now, all these and other manifestations of Russian ecocidal policy will have direct negative impact on millions of people, just as on our region and the neighboring regions as well. I'm sure that your society feels the fragility of our world. It feels how important it is for all people on the planet to pursue a rational policy towards our common home, just as, by the way, towards our common values on which the peaceful coexistence of people is based. It's therefore that I suggest to your country and your leaders to consider taking into account this environmental aspect of our formula for peace. I urge you to demonstrate leadership in international institutions, in particular in the UN and bilaterally with other states, so that the world would see these challenge that was brought by Russia's war, for the world to see that there is no real peace where any child can die from a hidden Russian anti-personnel mine. There's no true peace where the consequences of war could be there in the form of poisoned groundwater that may destroy normal life in several countries. There's no true peace where ecocide has taken place, and it's consequences have not been neutralized. Perhaps some might consider this aspect won't result in any sensations, but until today, the world has no strong experience in overcoming the destructive impact of war on the environment. We will liberate our land. We will win in this war. I'm confident that we will return freedom and security to all Ukrainians wherever they live. The countries of the world are already taking leadership in the implementation of certain points of our formula for peace. For example, the point on justice. Just yesterday, the Netherlands declared their readiness to host the tribunal on the crime of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. I call upon you to support the Ukraine formula for peace in your parliament and to start consolidating the world around the 8th point of the formula, that is the countering of ecocide. Let Russia hold responsibility for all the manifestations of its aggression. Thank you for your attention. Na Mehi, and glory to Ukraine.